Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this month's community networking event in تحت الزيتونة. We're so excited to be joined with Najla today. For everyone, if it's your first time joining our community networking event, just to do a few housekeeping items, we do ask that you have your camera on because this is a chance to meet other members of the community. The first 30 minutes will be a discussion with Najla, a Q&A around her work with Zero Waste Palestine. And then there will be some trivia, and then we will shift to breakout rooms. So we'll do a few rounds of breakout rooms with discussion questions related to the topic for today. Alrighty, so for today's session, I'm excited to introduce Najla Abdellatif, a Palestinian environmental activist from Jerusalem, who is dedicated to equipping others with the knowledge and drive to live consciously and sustainably. Through her initiative, Zero Waste Palestine, Najla raises awareness of environmental issues and inspires households to adopt waste-free and sustainable practices across the MENA region. Welcome, Najla.
Thank you, Bisan.
So to start things off, I'd like to ask about how you are doing and how you're processing these difficult times.
I am doing okay, I can say, as okay as I try to be okay. How I'm processing these times lately is I think that we're all witnessing scenes, and yeah, we're witnessing to a reality that is not beyond comprehension. It's not normal for anyone to witness. And still, I try to sit with the pain. I allow it to come. I don't try to numb it and avoid it in different ways. But at the same time, I try to consume images and news in a conscious way. Limit it to certain hours during the day, and always being conscious about like when I'm consuming it and what I'm consuming it on. And yeah, I think that also seeing the immense solidarity that we're experiencing, the solidarity with Palestine worldwide has given me a lot of hope. And also constantly reminding myself of the idea that liberation is possible. That is a big factor of me keeping sanity during these times.
Thanks for sharing that. I think it's been a balance that all of us are struggling with. It's, continuing to show up in the world and also in advocacy and in movement building to continue to fight for liberation, but still having the time to consciously witness what is happening and to still hold space for that because the people in Gaza are still enduring this. So it has been, I'll share, like from my own side, it's been a difficult balance to do both of those. So let me ask it. I'd like to probe a little bit more into this concept of liberation, because I think liberation is, what we're fighting for. In some ways, it feels closer than ever. How are you seeing liberation at this moment?
Liberation to me can take it's a long process. It's not something that has like a clear or a blueprint that is set. It's the collective action of, like, there's so many different ways that, or things that needs to happen in order to achieve liberation. And for me, it's a lot about, the most important part is the aspect of community and the collective, the aspect of the collective, basically, strengthening the collective power of the Palestinian community, I mean, yeah, strengthening the local economy, local production, supporting each other and being independent in that way, in many different ways, both like economically, financially, um, yeah, in every possible way on every level. So yeah, basically being independent from um, external factors, yeah, and not depending on anyone for our survival and for our well-being. Um, yeah.
And that's so closely tied to your work with Zero Waste Palestine and the conscious lifestyle. Um, be this idea of being independent, working collectively, working in solidarity, in our own communities. So can you take us back to the beginning of Zero Waste Palestine? How did you yourself enter into this journey of zero waste living, a more conscious lifestyle? And then how did that translate to the initiative that you put out into the world and invited others to join you along?
It resulted from a feeling of that there's something that is not right. Uh, I had a strong feeling of frustration and helplessness at some point, and it was very apparent back 6 years ago, back in 2017. I came back to Palestine after my studies abroad, and I was much more conscious about what is happening to our environment, what is happening to our planet. And in Palestine, and the Middle East in general, it's quite visible with the waste crisis. It's very apparent because you kind of notice it and you're exposed to it wherever you go. So this was not only affecting me psychologically and mentally, like being exposed to this, waste daily that was actually impacting my well-being. But I was also aware of the environmental aspects of waste, what waste does to the environment. And yeah, so I felt that this feeling of helplessness and frustration made me want to do something, and made me want to get something out in the world just for me to feel that I am doing something. So that led me to create a simple blog on just a WordPress blog that I decided to call Zero Waste Palestine, because I was inspired by the Zero Waste movement, which is a global movement that inspires people worldwide to reduce their waste as much as possible, to lower their impact on the environment. So I started blogging, and with the years, the concept has changed a bit, or it has evolved. There has been, I've been involved in several different projects and several different ways and methods of working, but I think that the vision has always been the same, more or less, throughout the journey.
That helplessness is something that you were feeling in 2017. I think we've all felt like small amounts of it, but at this particular time, it feels like it's overwhelming all of us. And this is why, yes, we're fighting for a free Palestine, but it's also a deeper sense of liberation. It's more than just a flag or just a nation state. It's in some ways we're fighting for life. And I'd love for you to kind of talk more about what you've experienced in Palestinian society in terms of our relationship with the earth, our relationship with the land, um, and how that relates to people's willingness or interests in adapting a zero waste lifestyle.
Yeah, so we usually hear the term the Palestinian connection to the land. We as Palestinians, we're very connected and strongly connected to the land. That's something that we usually hear. And this is, of course, present, very much present and true when we're looking at our ancestors, our Palestinian heritage, and how our ancestors used to live. Because, um, of course, they had a very deep interconnection with nature, with the land that was their source of well-being, of their livelihoods. Um, and it isn't until recent years that when we have, with growing urbanization, when we've moved away from, um, you know, the lands or the village, many people have moved away from the villages with, of course, in addition to like the colonialism, the occupation that is um, creating this bigger gap between Palestinians and the land, then it has created, then we have become more disconnected with it. And of course, there's the aspect of toxic capitalism and growing consumerism, which is also present, very much present in Palestine. And all these factors has made us, yeah, be disconnected somehow and disconnected from our roots. Um, and this is something that I'm very much interested in and like working to incorporate in the work that I'm doing with Zero Waste Palestine. Always reminding my audience that what I'm talking about is not a Western concept. Okay, it's called zero waste and like eco living or whatever, but it's definitely when we are practicing this way of life, we're really reconnecting to our original way of being, reconnecting to the land and honoring our, heritage as Palestinians. And I'm saying reconnecting because we're really, our source is originally from the land, from the planet. So it is always there in our essence, really. It's just that we've become disconnected from it, or the connection has, yeah, the gap has become bigger. So yeah, this way of living is really honoring our real way of being as Palestinians. So it's really a form of, I see it as a form of resistance when we are aware of what it actually, when we grow this, when we have the stronger connection to the land.
Can you share more about the projects, the ways that you are activating the community? I mean, you have a very large audience on Instagram with over 130,000 followers. Your blog has wonderful readership, which speaks to how like people are craving the content that you're creating, which I think is really beautiful. Um, can you talk more about like what Zero Waste Palestine is doing in the community and how you're helping people um, to adapt this lifestyle?
Yeah, so I would say that Zero Waste Palestine has two main ways of working. Of course, they're all under the same vision of creating a more conscious world and a more conscious society. But basically, there's the content creation arm and the blogging and spreading awareness, on the internet world. And then there's also the other arm is the actual creating physical spaces for learning and for raising awareness. By physical spaces, I mean collecting people together, creating a sense of community, and through that community, learn about different topics that are under the zero waste theme or environmental theme in general. So one of these ways is, for example, last year in Ramallah, in Palestine, we created a 5-day summer school that gathered 25 young Palestinians from across Palestine for a learning journey, basically. It was titled a Zero Waste Summer School. I'm also holding different sessions and workshops for schools and universities across Palestine. Um, for the next coming couple of months, for example, I'm partnering with an organization in Bethlehem where we're going to focus on creating a zero waste lab in Bethlehem, gathering schools and universities, and focusing on on the concept of waste from a Bethlehem context. And also another arm is working with businesses, especially small businesses that are trying to become more, reduce their waste and become more eco-friendly, I guess. So these are the different ways that I'm working with, basically.
Very cool, very cool. And over the past few years of doing this work, is there one story that stands out to you of like the impact that it had on someone's life by becoming more conscious, living in this new way, or in this old way, right? Because it's going back to how our ancestors lived, but reconnecting with the land, or like reconnecting with this more conscious way of living.
I think there are many stories that are like very simple examples of people that have been affected by Zero Waste Palestine. So, for example, I had this woman that came up to me who said that like she was visiting her friend, and then her friend, after they had their breakfast, her friend she dug a hole in the ground and put the scraps from the vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. And she asked her what she was doing. And she said that like, yeah, I saw this on a page called Zero Waste Palestine, and I started ever since then, like I've started doing the same. Then there's another story that is very close to my heart of this young woman who reached out to me, who said that I inspired her to shift to cloth sanitary pads instead of commercial ones, and that has helped her in getting away from her, skin rashes. And she was struggling a lot with the commercial ones. So it's like these small, simple examples that are quite close to my heart, because I feel that I'm not expecting anyone to transform their life and go completely zero waste, but it's definitely about these small steps that lead you to the way of becoming more conscious. Because we're talking about behavioral shift, a mindset shift, and that is something that takes a lot of time. It's not something that happens, okay, I saw a girl doing zero waste and then I'm gonna, start doing like her. So it's very appreciating the time and effort that it takes, actually.
It's inspiring, this movement, these like very small hacks, very simple recipes. Lema just shared in the chat about the dishwasher soap. That was from one of your recipes online.
Yeah.
That's just, it's also empowerment, right? It's that we have this within us, like we can do these things. Um, Living more sustainably it's like within our reach. And I think that you do a really beautiful job of simplifying it for people so that they can take, just like, one hack here, one recipe here to incorporate it, and then over time planting those seeds of zero waste living.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask one final question, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. So please go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. The final question I have is, the name of our membership community is تحت الزيتونة. And this is intended to be a space where we have honest conversations about what our community needs. So what is one conversation that you think is important for us to be having?
I think it relates a lot to what I was mentioning previously, that the lifestyle and the behavioral change that I'm advocating for is very much connected to um, encouraging more local ways of production, more local ways of consumption. Um, so very much related to like strengthening Palestine from the inside, and support Palestinians supporting themselves, whether Palestinians in the diaspora or inside Palestine, but actually creating a very strong sense of collective power. Because when we liberate ourselves from external dependence, whether it being funding or for products or for food or whatever, this is also an important step to achieving resilience, to be self-sufficient, and also it's a form of resistance. And also, like, I feel that it's an important step towards achieving liberation. Also, an important aspect is being aware of systems of oppression that come, of course, it's very apparent in colonialism and occupation, but also capitalism, toxic capitalism is such a system of oppression that is affecting so much in our life, and that is creating impacts that are standing in the way of us, of our well-being, of our self-sufficiency, of our well-being as individuals, as a society, basically. And so being aware of those concepts and those systems that are standing in the way as distractions, that are standing in the way for our liberation. So yeah, it's important to be aware of these things, I feel.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, Najla. So now we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. Maha, would you like to go first?
Salam, hi. Najla, thank you so much for the work that you do. I love that you said that it's going back to old ways, because when I remember my grandma, she really was like zero waste normally, and she would always complain about how we were living and what we were doing. And as a kid, it's like, I don't know what she's talking about. When you get older, you realize, oh my God, she's right. There's trash everywhere now, and we can't even like keep up. I wanted to ask if you worked with hiking groups. When I was living in Palestine, I would hike every single week with like these really awesome groups of Palestinian, and they would always throw trash on the floor while we were hiking on the trail. And I would always be like that annoying person that would be like, can we not do that? Can we just keep it in our bag until we get to like the rest stop or whatever? And they're just like, no, it's fine. And I'm like, who? Like, it's our land. I'm not like, I don't understand why this is even a thing. Like, why are we dropping this? And the second thing was, it's funny. Everybody would pack chips and chocolate and like junk food, and it's like another part of like the whole zero waste thing. I'm like, you're on a hiking trip, like you need healthy stuff. Like I would be the only one with like healthy food. So I love that your work would intersect with not only like the garbage issue to simplistically, but like also health, really. Like it's just healthier to be zero waste because it forces you to go for those better options. So I was just wondering, like out of curiosity, if you've ever been in touch with like hiking groups and stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I have been in touch. Yes, I haven't worked with them actively, like on a certain project, but we've had conversations, definitely. And I'm trying, like through the work that I'm doing, I'm trying to reach as many people as possible in society. And I think that, social media helps a lot with that, in that reach. But of course, there needs to be, that's not enough for behavioral change, just being present on social media. So I think working more focused and more targeted to specific groups. And this is the work that I'm starting to do, for example, with a summer camp and working with certain schools and stuff like that. So it's definitely a great idea to work with in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Najla. I know you talked about this on your socials, but if you can talk briefly about the environmental damage that is happening right now in Gaza. That's one part of the question. And then I'm wondering about the climate change activists and their role now activating for Palestine. We've seen like Greta and others who had some, noise about Palestine. So I would love to know from your perspective, like how do you evaluate these movements right now? And are they doing anything for Palestine? And is there anything that we can do there to, use that angle to advocate for Palestine?
Yeah, so starting with your second question, of course, I mean, there are, from what I've seen, that there are, quite a lot of environmental movements that are working, or that have, made statements, and they're advocating for and raising their voices and so on, but these are the kind of movements that acknowledge the intersectionality of everything that is happening. So they don't see climate as merely climate, but they do believe in the topic of environmental justice, and yeah, especially climate justice activists that are advocating for this. During when I was at COP past December, there was a lot of vigils and like stands and protests that were done on the ground for Palestine, advocating for climate justice, and with slogans like "We cannot achieve climate justice without, peace, or without justice anywhere." So yeah, there's a lot of, they acknowledge basically the intersectionality. But then those are the climate movements that I'm exposed to. Of course, I cannot speak for all. And yeah, of course, yeah, where do I even start regarding the environmental destruction in Gaza? It's beyond comprehension. It's on every single level. It's basically an herbicide, it's an ecocide, and it's a deliberate attempt to basically, erase any traces of Palestinian memory or history, or just cause complete destruction for any form of life. So for example, if you look at the farmlands, they have been completely, I mean, the toxins that they're exposed to makes them non-functional, they're not okay to to farm on, to use basically, and it's going to remain that way for tens and tens of years. So basically any food that you grow in Gaza is not going to be fit for human consumption. Yeah, and yeah, it's like where like all the waste crisis, there's no waste management system, so waste is just compounding the streets. The same with sewage. There's toxic waste from concrete, from the concrete, from the buildings, from the destruction, from the debris, that everyone is exposed to, which is extremely cancerogenious, and toxic for the health. So it's like on every single level. And this is something I try to talk about this on my socials, the topic of environmental justice and the intersectionality and so on. But oftentimes I feel like, where do I start? Like, yeah, whatever I say is like, yeah, is not going to do it justice. And especially considering that, people are literally being forcibly starved to death. So yeah, that's there's a lot to say, but also, yeah, so there's a lot to say, but I also feel so, wordless somehow.
Lena.
Hi, thank you, Najla. I love hearing you speak as always. And we've spoken before about like the intersection of hand embroidery, tatreez, and sustainability, and kind of related but not related. Are you targeting people in Palestine, or are you thinking as well about Palestinians in the diaspora and maybe even just broader the world in terms of helping people start practicing more sustainable habits? And like my mind obviously goes to tatreez, so like I'm thinking about, is there something about practicing our ancestral traditions to essentially be more sustainable regardless of where you're at? I'm just curious about kind of where your focus areas are and where you see like these opportunities potentially playing a role in the future.
Yeah, thank you for your good question. I am not only present in Palestine. I would say that most of my followers are not from Palestine. They're from like the other countries in Middle East and North Africa, but mostly Arabic speaking countries, of course. And and I'm also doing work in other countries. For example, next week in Tunis, I'm going to have some sessions about food waste, and then I'm going to Egypt and to Jordan. And so yeah, it's not only limited to Palestine. And when it comes to tatriz and hand embroidery, like just the method of doing it, like that in itself is a very sustainable way of consuming or producing. It's a typical example of slow fashion, basically, because while you are practicing tatriz, you're actually realizing how much time and effort and energy it needs or it takes to produce clothing. And I think that it can help a lot shift their mindset towards how we consume clothes in general, hopefully. And also all forms of preserving identity, preserving culture and heritage is a form of, sustainability. It's a form of resistance as well. So I think Tatriz is such a typical example of what Palestinian heritage really is. And through it, you can tell so many tales and talk about so many topics. You can talk about resistance, about culture, about sustainability, beauty, and all that. Even nature, because there's a lot of symbols from nature that are present in Tatriz, whether it being plants or animals, and yeah.
And that feels, I know, Najla, you're working on a very exciting project. If you're able to share about that yet, kind of to Lena's question about the diaspora and how to share.
Yeah. So I'm working on an ebook, like a digital guide, that is called Zero Waste Life of My Ancestors. And in it, I collect recipes and methods and ways in which our grandparents and Palestinian ancestors used to live, whether it being from health, hygiene, to cleaning products, to how they used to reduce food waste, also clothing. So that is a project that I'm currently working on, and it will be released in the beginning of the fall. So I just sent a link that you can pre-register on the link, and you will get a notification when the book is out.
Amazing. I'm so excited for this book. And I'll just share with everyone that personally, I have received a lot of inspiration from Najla. Like really finding the motivation, the inspiration to live a more zero waste friendly lifestyle, which is something I think we all want, but it requires the attention and the dedication. Okay, so let me just read this comment from Lean in the chat. She says, as grandchildren of the Nakba, our grandmothers lived and taught us the preciousness and importance of use everything. A big towel with a hole would become a hand towel. Ends of soap bars would be melted into a big bar and an empty can. Our zero waste mentalities from generational trauma. You've put a beautiful twist on it of empowerment as a form of eco-resistance. Thank you. You've inspired us.
Thank you for the comment.
So now we're going to switch gears into trivia for a bit before we go into our breakout rooms. Let me share my screen here. So what everyone's going to do is just in the chat, go ahead and share your answer to the questions. We have 4 trivia questions today just to bring some fun. So the first question is, what is the most common type of waste in Palestine? Is it A, medical waste, B, demolition debris, C, industrial waste, or D, organic waste? Yeah, some votes for B, a lot for C, a couple for D. All righty, the correct answer is D, organic waste. Najla, can you talk a little bit about this? I know this was really surprising for me to find out.
Yeah, so 60% of the total waste in Palestine is organic waste, and that is included everything that is organic. So from the households, restaurants, supermarkets, and also on the farm level. There's a lot of food waste that was resulting on the farm level and transportation level from like the farm to the packaging to the supermarket and so on. And that's because of many reasons. Partially because of like the, lack of proper technology, for example, or whole chain technology from farm to, other steps in the supply chain. So yeah.
Sure, thanks for explaining that. So the next question, food waste in Arab countries increases by blank percent during Ramadan. Is it A, 10%, B, 25%, C, 50%, or D, 90%? Any answers are coming in. We have a couple for C, a lot for C, a couple for B. Yeah. Najla, do you want to go ahead and share the correct answer?
It's 50%. Yeah.
Fair. In some surrounding villages in Hebron, there have been an alarming increase of cancer among Palestinians living there due to the illegal burning of this type of waste. Is it A, tires? Oops. Sorry. Go back. Okay. Is it A, tires, B, medical waste, C, plastics, or D, e-waste? I can't see the chat. There we go. Okay. We have a lot of votes for C. Najla, do you want to share
Yeah,
the
so
correct answer?
it's actually the burning of e-waste. There's in many villages around Hebron, the cancer levels have just skyrocketed. So there are thousands of cancer patients every year, and in these villages, they're 4 times more likely to get cancer because there's a lot of illegal burning of e-waste that is usually smuggled from Israel and to this area in Hebron. E-waste is any form of waste from electronics, so computers, wires, TVs, yeah.
Our final question for today for trivia is, what is the most difficult type of waste to avoid in our households? Is it A, meat and fish packaging, B, plastics, C, electronics, D, hygiene products? We have some votes for B, one for D, C. Alrighty, Najla, can you share the correct answer? No one
Yeah,
got this one.
this is very dependent on the household, of course, but this is personally, I experienced that this is the most difficult one, which is meat and fish packaging. Yeah, this is much like a more personal question, I think.
Awesome. Alrighty, so that's our trivia for today. Now, I'm going to share so we're going to have 2 rounds of breakout rooms for like 5 to 6 minutes each, just as a chance for you to meet each other. If you're in the breakout room, again, we do ask that you put your camera on so that you can meet the other people in the room with you. The first question is, what about living a zero waste lifestyle most appeals to you? What challenges might you face and how can you overcome them? Alrighty. So I'll go ahead and paste this question in the chat as well so that you can have it. But I hope that everyone has a good time in the breakout rooms and has a chance to meet new people.